All right, it looks like we're live. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Dolphin Doug, and we've got this wonderful opportunity to talk to Q from Greenland. And so I'm going to give a little bit of an introduction for you guys because you came to this channel probably to see Alaska. And in my mind, Greenland is almost Alaska and is close enough as far as things go. But Q is really, really neat because she's doing what I want to do in Greenland. And she has this beautiful ability to make me, which I already knew, but to know that life is amazing. That's her Q. That's her tag, and that's your Q. So Q, give us a few kind words.
Yeah, I'm Q from Greenland. I'm born and raised here. I have traveled a lot around the world and realized that people around the world don't know much about Greenland. So in February 2020, I decided, right before the pandemic, decided to start my channel called QsGreenland. So I make videos, short videos about Greenland. So I tell you stories about our culture, what we eat, our national costume, what Greenland is really about, because people don't know much about Greenland around the world. So I basically introduce people to anything in Greenland in a realistic, in an everyday mode.
So what I wanted to do was to do a little bit of compare and contrast between Alaska and Greenland. But what really
Yeah.
drew me to Q's channel is Q, in that watching through all of the videos, knowing what she's doing, that there I see pieces of her. One of the questions I was going to ask her was, does she have any pets? Well, I know she has four, but I don't know if she has more. And to me, an awful lot of Alaska. I mean, it's. I'm a little bit older, and so I've spent my time thinking about this. And the most important thing, even though Greenland is an amazing place, to me are the people. And Q being my introduction. And one of the fascinating things that you do is it seems like you are so part of the community. All of your videos I see, I don't, other than your husband, it took me a while to make sure that it was the same guy. I haven't quite made sure that everybody's new. There are always new people with you. How do you do that?
Oh, yeah. We are only 56,000 people here in Greenland. So everybody knows each other before or later. So I don't know, I'm very outgoing. So it's quite easy for me just to connect with new people. And I often use my friends too, and to do my videos. Yeah, I have a, yeah, I'm a part of the whole big community. So it's quite easy for me to have people in my videos.
Now, you mentioned in the video that Greenlanders tend to be very, very quiet when you're out and about
Uh-huh.
and very closed
Yeah.
with strangers. I don't see that in
Yeah.
the video at all. It's as if that's a different entity. Now, I know my own self.
Yeah, I'm a, yeah, I'm a bit an unusual Greenlander, because I think it's because I've studied. First, I studied in Denmark, then I studied in the U.S., then in Australia, and I've done mountaineering in Africa, in South America, and so on. Like I have just learned to understand other cultures and how important it is to be outgoing, to really connect with people around the world. So I do that. So many Greenlanders were like, Q, why are you screaming in the videos? Why are you talking so loud? And why do you talk so much with your body language? And also, why are you so outgoing? That was the questions I got, like the first year I was making videos. But now people have learned and understood why I'm doing this is to reach the international people around the world. Like I need to be much more outgoing to reach out there. So now the Greenlandic people understand this, and accepted who I am, how I am. I need to be with my videos to just catch people. And yeah, but so normally, it's like many of my friends are like never ever scream on video, never ever talk loud on video. They would just be like, yeah, a bit quiet. And yeah, so a Greenlander is a typical someone who doesn't talk much because we are so connected with the nature. We are so one with the nature still that is like we just talk a lot. We still do talk a lot through body language. I know when someone replies to me saying, I don't know, I do know it means no. Instead of saying directly no, we would just say, oh, don't know. Then it's like, so there are many ways of communicating just instead of just words, but we do use our facial expression a lot too, like not, no, yes. And it's like we have different face expressions with different meanings.
It's neat to see the you, but I'm also fascinated by that change with with your Greenlanders. But before we get too far, I do have a treat for you. Can you show me a window
Mm-hmm.
daytime where you are? Or
Yeah, I can show you my window.
oh,
Window.
oh okay,
So see, you
yes.
see there's a lot of snow. So we just got snow 2 days ago. Before that, almost all the snow has melted. And yeah, and we are in Nuuk, in the capital of Greenland. We do not get seawater here, so we always have the open sea over here. And it's -7 degrees today. Yeah, it's just a normal winter day today. It's snowing a little bit, but nice and calm, no wind today.
So you can see the black window out behind me. It's still dark in Alaska, and before this show is over,
Oh, yeah, it's early morning.
it's early morning, but I'm going to show you Aurora,
Yeah?
Northern
You're going to
Lights.
show me Aurora?
Aurora. I'm going to show you
Yeah,
Aurora.
Northern Lights. That's amazing. We had them last night here, too.
I live in Juneau, and we're 6 degrees latitude south of you. And when you show me that
Mm-hmm.
picture out your window, the biggest difference, the huge difference is in Juneau, everything is covered with trees. So I have, 150-foot tall trees in my yard, all over the valley, everywhere except when you get up near tree line or near the glacier. It's that much difference between
Yeah.
where we are and where you are. But I'm fascinated with that because we're in the balmy southern belt, but we're in the capital. Our, Juneau is very much like Nuuk in that you cannot drive here, but we're on the mainland. We have it's 32,000 people, and it's been very stable. I've been here since 1993, and they said there were 30,000 people back then. But in other ways,
Wow.
even though your town's half the size, your shopping mall is a lot better than our shopping malls. We have two, but neither one of them are as big as yours
Yeah.
are. It's and the other way, of course, is if you go far enough north in Alaska, we'll get country that looks like yours. But uh,
Mm-hmm.
when you go all the way south, could you tell me a little bit? I'm a little bit confused because you live, Nuuk is tucked up on the west side of Greenland. And to me, the farther north you go in Alaska, generally the colder and the more miserable it gets. And then you actually
Yeah.
come from the
The
southern
same.
tip, which isn't really southern, it's just not as north. You don't get down to our balmy tree growing latitudes. So why isn't the biggest city at the south like it is everywhere else in the world?
Oh, that is a really, really good question. I wish that Nuuk, the capital, would have been in South Greenland because then we would have a bit degrees warmer weather. And yeah, back in 1700 and was it 23 or 25 when Hans Egede came to Greenland. He based here in Nuuk, and I have no clue why he chose Nuuk because it's definitely not the best place in Greenland, in my opinion, regarding to weather condition. And he could easily have placed Nuuk further in the fjord with this better weather and more calm regarding to the wind. Yeah, I cannot answer that question exactly why hence you chose Nuuk to be here, unfortunately. But it could have been in South Greenland. There was a time where they almost placed Nuuk in Eluituba in South Greenland. But yeah, that is a good question.
And so, South Greenland, you're biased, but South Greenland is better weather. It would make sense.
It's a bit warmer. It's a bit warmer. But lately, like the last 10, 15 years, the storms have gotten worse and worse in South Greenland, probably because of the climate change. So when I was a kid in South Greenland, we could easily predict the weather like a week at the time by looking at the clouds and just see how the weather is changing and so on. We could easily predict the next couple of days, but now we cannot do that anymore. We need to look into weather conditions from day to day now, because we suddenly the weather changes so much faster now, and the storms has become like 10 times worse compared to my childhood. So the weather is definitely changing. Yeah.
So, Juneau, we can't. I mean, we can use electronic means, but you can't walk outside and predict the weather at all. The next day can be an entirely different thing, and so that's really interesting to see that difference. That's a fundamental difference to me, if you can say that. And then I also want to know about your storms, because I was trying to do my research, and I found something that said you got a word for a wind that comes off of the ice field. A
Are you thinking about the
Pitterick.
strong storm in East Greenland? That's called Pitterak.
Okay.
Pitserak is the strongest storm we have in Greenland, and when they have Pitserak in East Greenland, people cannot go outside, and all the buildings are constructed low and extra hardened, or how do you call it? So they won't fly away during the Pitserak, and they close all the windows as well when the Pitserak is coming. And they do everything to just seal everything to avoid dangerous goods just flying around in town and so on. So yeah, they have that in East Greenland, and the storms in South Greenland are starting slowly to be similar. They're still weaker, but we are starting to get very strong storms in South Greenland.
And then in Nuuk.
We are getting more often storms here in Nuuk a little bit. I'm feeling a little changed, but we in the summer, the last 3 summers, we have been so cloudy. I do a lot of gardening. I grow potatoes. I grow rhubarbs. And what are they called? What are they called? Roer. They're called roer in Danish. And we also grow strawberries. So we do feel a change in our garden because we have so much cloud the last 3 years, and I do believe it's the climate change doing this, because normally we would have like many days of sun during the summer, but we don't have that anymore. Like last summer, last year, 2022, I think we had like 10 good summer days with sun all day, like only 10. Normally we would have like during the summer maybe 50 days of sun. So yeah, we are getting more clouds at the moment. Yeah.
And we've got a different situation where every year is different. And
Mm-hmm.
the old timers, it just kind of, you just take what you get. So this past year in 2022, we Juneau set a record for rainfall. We beat it by a couple of inches. We had 89 inches of rain, and so it's easily
Wow.
twice what you have, but that's 20 inches, 22 inches more than they say the average is. And the winter before, I've been looking at temperatures, and I was able to take a thermometer, a trigger thermometer that I can shine out at the snowbank, and I got it to show me minus 37 Fahrenheit, which is a lot colder than Juneau ever gets. But it's interesting listening to you, looking at it from a long time period and seeing things as if you can see a trend. To me, some years are very snowy and others are very no snow. Some are very wet and some are dry. And here is my special treat. I told you you would get it. This is my daughter, Aurora. Hi.
I thought you were going to show me the aurora outside.
I'm better, right? They grow up quickly. That's a big difference. I so love my trees. It's part of the environment that I live in. But to me, you talk about your connection to your environment. You talk about it's because to me, it's because you can see around you almost wherever you are. There are places
Yes,
to
yeah,
see.
yeah,
And here,
yeah.
everything, and now we can go out on the water and you can see on the water, but that's a different
Hmm.
experience. If I'm standing on a
Yeah.
rock, then I've got that. And so if I go to the glacier where the trees are much smaller, then I get that same big sky feeling. In Montana, the big state southwest, they call it big sky country. And I've driven through that where it seems like you can see everywhere. Where's the southeast Alaska? There are always trees beside you. And it's also interesting
Yeah.
because Juneau was very recently covered with ice. So we've got isostatic rebound. And so our land is lifting up.
Uh-huh.
And so there are wetlands, very large wetlands. And I've been here since '93, and I look around and there are trees filling up my beautiful wetlands because as the water pulls out of the salt water, as the ground pulls out of the salt water, there are more and more trees on every single tiny little rise. And so I don't know.
Hmm.
That's an interesting question. See, if you don't have the trees, I'm sure you've got the uplift, but you don't see it as much because the trees don't suddenly show up.
Yeah, and also because of the rock we have here is some of the oldest rock in the world.
Right,
So our geology is like a paradise for geologists.
right,
So because of our rock material, our foundation is so old, the changes are very, very small. Of course, we must be uplifting a little bit since the ice sheet is melting. But I have in my lifetime, I haven't seen any difference. I have seen that the ice sheet, like in Kangerlussuaq, has shrunken. So I compared to when I was there, like I was there on my day 100 of my 100-day series, and then I was there like 10 or 15 years earlier, and I can see the ice sheet has moved a lot, with maybe like, I don't know, 50 meters. It has shrunken the whole area, but we don't see much vegetation yet because we're just a bit colder. That makes the all the flora growing slower. And since, as you said, we don't have any trees, so we basically don't feel the big difference, and we do have view to everything. I can see, I don't know, I can see like, I don't know how many kilometers away I can just look, because we don't have anything to block our view. So it's amazing when you are here, you can see everything, and the air is very dry and very clean, because we don't have forests or a lot of flora polluting or affecting the air.
we'll have when our spruce put out pollen, everything gets covered with pollen. Inside the house, you get a skin.
Hmm.
If you have glossy wood or something, you can see this coat of a little bit of, and the windshield on your vehicle, you're going to have to spray it off just from one day for
Yeah.
just a couple. That I hadn't
Yeah.
thought of that you don't have that. I was just realizing, to me, everywhere you are, it's like you're on a ship, right? You can look off to the side and see something below you, and here it's like you're inside the ship. You can look out a window when you get a chance to see something. We're surrounded by mountains.
Mm.
And it's also interesting. So, from studying it, Juneau is about 10 degrees warmer Fahrenheit. I do everything Fahrenheit, but 5 degrees Celsius than you are. And that's enough to make the difference. But the other way of looking at it is,
Yeah.
nearby us, we have 3,500 foot mountains, so about 1,000 meter mountains. And at maybe 700 to 800 meters is tree line. So they're beautiful little mountains that have a snow cap on the top, and they look like mountains, even though they're very easy to hike compared to something big. Whereas, of course, you don't see that because everything is above tree line.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So, going back a little bit, I want to know what you mean when you say storm, because the thing I saw was this Pitarack wind was 68 kilometers an hour, which means nothing to me. And to me, 100-mile-an-hour wind is a big deal. Do you ever see that in Nook?
I don't do miles, unfortunately. I do kilometers per hour, and so
140 kilometers an hour. Is that
we don't see that in Nook.
what's the strongest wind you've seen in Nook?
Meter per second. I do meters per second.
Oh,
Like in Nook, we can easily get to like 35 meters per second when it's really bad. I don't how much is that in miles per hour or kilometers per hour? Is 35 meters per second. That is
what a fascinating world we live in, that we have not only metric and standard, but meters per second, and they all work for us. And it's one of these things. America is strange in not using the metric system, and
yeah.
I know them both. I just think in the other one, and the rest of the world is
Yeah.
metric. But you do meters per second, or this is trying to buy fuel for your car. You guys buy liters, and we buy gallons.
Yeah.
What is
By
35 meters
liters.
per second in miles per hour? She's got a phone. So
To kilometers per hour.
okay.
I'm just doing calculation right here. In meter per second, 35 meter per second to hour. That is 126 kilometers per hour.
Okay, so you have seen that.
Yes, we have seen 126 kilometers per hour here in Nuuk. Yeah.
And you might see it every other winter, once or twice.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay,
Maybe 3 times.
that's the same thing. That's too high. That's dangerous. And you're saying East Greenland is worse?
Yes. They get up to er det ikke 50 meter per sekund. Is it 50 meters per second they get? Let me just see. That is 180 kilometers per hour.
Okay. That rips roofs off of houses. Yeah. Yeah. And so it's the same thing. You're in the wrong place. I mean,
Yeah.
it could be all. Well, that's a question. Why don't more people live in East Greenland, which is right beside Iceland, which is so close to Europe?
Because of the climate. It's so remote. It's so difficult to live there because of the strong storms, because of the cold and the hunting animals, and it's just not green enough, I think. So it's a tough environment to live in.
I mean, from my perspective, claiming that they're not green and you are green is a bit of a stretch. In that southern Greenland,
Yeah.
you are, but it makes the difference where you're saying the weather is worse there, the weather is better in Nuuk, the weather is even better at southern Greenland. What about the northwest part of Greenland, where there are more native, there are more villages? up where the
Yeah.
beautiful ice comes out, etc. Is that
That is the hunting animals. Yeah. So when we the places are mostly placed where they are because of the hunting animals. So the seal, the whales, the land animals like reindeers, musk ox, and so on. Like depending on them, we used to place all the locations. And some of the location was just grown because of the hunting animals in that area. So yeah, definitely. Like in South Greenland, we have sheep farming. We slaughter around like 22,000 sheep every year. So in South Greenland, it's very normal to eat sheep. It's normal to have sheep here in South in Nuuk too. But if you go further north, they will prefer like seal, whales, and reindeer. And yeah, so depending on where you are, our food varies a bit. Yeah, do and yeah, it's just we are very local based on what we can hunt in the areas we live in. Yeah.
now, you seem to get around Greenland quite a bit? Is that part of your job?
Yes, I do a lot of different things. I'm a mining engineer next to my QsGreenland. I have my own company. I have my own consulting company. I do facilitation work around Greenland and different things. So next to that, when I go to places for other work, I do my videos too. But now since QsGreenland has grown this much, now I specifically get asked if I could come and do QsGreenland specific places. So yeah, it, it yeah.
Okay. You stop moving.
Yeah.
Come on, my bandwidth.
Am I moving again?
You're cutting in and out. Aurora, you can't
I
use
see you clearly.
turn
I see
turn
you.
off your internet. Use the cell phone. Yeah, don't
Yeah,
use
I
Wi-Fi.
see you clearly the whole time.
Good, good. So,
Yeah.
and Alaska is got a huge amount of mining, and it's very active.
Mm-hmm.
We have a gold mine just north of us. Juneau is
Yeah.
founded on a gold mine, and I live in the valley of Juneau, which is 10 miles, uh, 14, 15 kilometers away from downtown, which is where the gold was. And it's a terrible spot that catches all of the wind and catches the rain and is just a miserable spot for a town. But the city is built there, and it's been there, and so it's kind of history why we are where we are. I didn't believe. I mean, I've paid attention to the Norwegian history and was fascinated at how Nuuk is on the end of West Greenland's the Norwegian settlement was that whole area that you're in, and the enormous. Have you studied the Norwegian history of the area? Is that still accessible?
Um. Yeah. Like Denmark and Norway used to be Denmark, Norway, and Sweden used to be together one kingdom. So we don't. It's like Hans Egil. We don't think of him as a Norwegian. We more think of him as a Danish person because that was when the kingdom was one back then. Yes, we do have a lot of history, but we also have the history of the Vikings, like Eric the Red came to Greenland in year 983 and named Greenland Greenland. So we have a lot of history, but we also have a lot of history of the Inuit coming to Greenland, Dorset 1, Dorset 2, and I'm going to be making videos about that, the history of how the Inuit came to Greenland. So that's going to be in 2 3 videos. So I'm going to be telling about how the Inuit Greenlanders came first to Greenland and so on. So that part of the history. So we are, yeah. So 89% of the Greenlandic people speak Greenlandic, 11% doesn't, and those 11% are mainly Danish people who have moved to Greenland. But we are also starting to have a lot of uh, Philippine people, people from the Philippines here in Nuuk,
Okay.
because they're great workforce, and I think we have like maybe 300, 400 people from the Philippines here in Nuuk.
We have a big Filipino community here, and
Mm-hmm.
it's they go back, and I mean we have a Samoan community here, and I am
Mm-hmm.
fascinated at that history because I have looked at the Inuit in that as I understand it, all of a sudden somebody, and I think they were in Siberia, figured out how to thrive in environments that others couldn't. So the poor Norwegians that, and I keep saying Norwegian because my wife is half Norwegian, and so it's very tied together, the
Mm-hmm.
Scandinavian countries. But of course, the Norwegians think all of the Vikings that went to Iceland and Greenland were theirs, and the Swedes would disagree, and the Danes have a different perspective. But I went with my wife to Bergen, Norway, which is the
Yeah.
spot where the Norwegians were sailing to the west and looking for new land. In
Yes.
Oslo
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Sweden,
Yeah.
they went into Russia and they just kept going that way. And of course, the
Yeah.
Danes are partly the ones that went and took over all of Europe for 100 years. There were no cities within 50 miles of the coastline because if they saw fires, they would go in and take whatever they could find. But my Norwegian relatives in Bergen didn't know anything about the Vikings other than that they were from Norway someplace. Even though they were
Uh-huh.
literally
Uh-huh.
in their fjord, that's where the longships were
Yeah.
built that came across. Eric the Red is from Bergen. And
Yeah.
also, just a little story. We went up to visit my father-in-law's island, which is way up north, has no trees. It's a little tiny island with 120 people on it, and
Uh-huh.
so we we went there with a cousin, and I'm carrying a baby. My wife's beside me. I've got my cousin who's been on the island off and on for her whole life, and we're walking with the local school teacher who's talking to us as we're walking along down the road. And we pass two great big Norwegian men, and they both have the bushy beards, and they walk along, and they see the school teacher, and they say, "Yo." And we walk by, and when we get 50 yards past, he says, "Those two have been practicing their English for the last 3 months so they could say hello to you." And that is all they could get out. They're very similar to, and that's how I think, that's what I think of when you mention your neighbors, and yet they all seem to, when you can ask them questions and they actually answer them very lively. I love the way you tie in your Greenlandic and English. Obviously, nobody outside of Greenland knows the Greenlandic, or is that true? Could you speak the same language as my Inuit in northern Alaska?
Yes. Yes. So if I went to Alaska or Nunavut, or yeah, I would be able to understand like maybe 50 or 60% of what they're saying. But if I spent like 2 weeks there, I would basically be able to understand like 90% easily, because our language, our Inuit language, is based from the same language. So we do have many similar words. Some of the words have the opposite meaning, but we could easily, yeah. But yeah, many of my followers from Alaska and Nunavut are very surprised when I speak Greenlandic. I teach Greenlandic words. They say, "Oh, we say the same thing." Like especially counting to 10 adasach machluppingas utsisamatilliment affinpingas affinsiqudit. It's very similar to the other Inuit countries, so Inuit languages nearby. So it's it's basically the same, has the same foundation of the language. So, but the Greenlandic is like, here in Greenland, as I said before, 89% of us speaks Greenlandic. So we are not losing our language as other countries are seem to be losing the Inuit language. We are maintaining it because we speak it every single day, and prioritizing it. And so, yeah, and next to this, as our second language is Danish, and then our third language is English. But nowadays, from first day of school, our children have started to learn Greenlandic, Danish, and English equally, which is a new thing. I think it was in fifth grade when I started to learn English, but I never really learned it. So I was actually 23 years old when I decided to learn English. So I went to Canada for 3 months, and after that took an English course in Denmark, and after that I've been studying in the US and in Australia. So that's why I can speak English, but I almost couldn't say anything in English until I was 23.
I've going to my local culture. The native culture is Tlingit, and it's pretty much across Alaska. I'm not a complete expert, but back in the 50s, they took all of the native kids and stuck them in boarding schools during most of the
Mm-hmm.
year, and they forced them. They mixed the cultures together from all over, and they forced them to speak English. And so there was this
Yeah.
gap where you had the elders that that had this language, and the youngsters which missed core time. And one of the things that was happening at the same time is those elders were getting all, and these are all the different communities, including your Inuit. I mean, the northernmost people were all the kids are mixed together, so they couldn't communicate. Not only were they told they couldn't speak, but they didn't have anything in common with each other any more than you do with somebody that grew up in Kenya, and if they lived on the land and you're a little 6-year-old and you did it, you can't talk about this. It's not the same wildlife. It's not the same seals. It's not the same whales. It's not the same fishing. And so the other problem that happened is the sense of connection to the land was so tied up in that language because the elders could describe details that the youngsters didn't understand what they were talking about, because I can say fish one of they lost the subtleties to the language, and it was a long gap, and there's been a huge effort lately to re-bring the language back, but they lost the active. I mean, I see the pictures of you hunting and eating whale blubber, and I would call that muktuk. Is that muktuk? Is that the right
Yeah,
word?
mattek. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, mattek. Yeah.
and in many ways, many of our southeastern communities have lost that. Now, some of the remote communities up north kept it better, because whenever the kids went
Yeah.
home, they would speak the local language wherever the village was. Whereas English is so powerful. Once you get English and you understand it, anything you do in the library or school or reading, it's hard to save a native culture. So your pushing that language means a lot to me. I want to strongly encourage you to just it's and then to me it's also fascinating because you started right out in the beginning talking that language, and here you are now that you're famous. You don't have to change. That's the same you. That's the same message you want to send. Keep Greenland Greenlandic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another big
That
difference.
that's what I'm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm. Yeah. I'm also forcing like the Greenlandic people to become more proud of who we are, because we are so rich in our with our nature what we can still go out hunting, we can still go out fishing. It's like we can survive out in the extreme weather conditions like any many people around the world can't do anymore. It's like we have so much to be proud of who we are with our language, with our culture and all of that. And me showing it to the rest of the world are actually making Greenlanders realize more and more how rich we actually are. And that is like, I'm hoping like in the future it will even have more effect. So will become even more proud people than we are now, because many Greenlanders just look out and see the fjord and yeah, just another day with the fjord. It's like they don't even see how beautiful, how extreme lucky we are. But I think it's because I have traveled so much around the world that I can see how rich we actually are. And so me telling about this is actually making Greenlanders more aware how lucky we are to be
So,
Greenlanders.
so one of my concerns is I can't pretend to be an expert on Alaska. It's way too big. And on the other hand, people think of it as one subject. Southeast Alaska only means something to me and to other Alaskans.
Mm,
I could also talk about the
mm-hmm.
Aleutians or the Arctic, but to the vast majority of the people in the world, it's just Alaska, and then you have Greenland. And so to me, you act like you're a local in every community you go to around Greenland. And even when you go to Copenhagen, you're saying, this is how we do Copenhagen. And my concern as an Alaskan is that other Alaskans are going to look at me and say, you're an idiot. That's not how we do it. And it sounds to me like you're going out. I mean, I loved when you did dog sledding. Why did you do that? You'd never dog sled before in your life. You know what it is. You're surrounded by it. You understand it up here, but then you actually do it, and you're just a kid in a candy store. And to me, that's the way I feel about Alaska, the same way. What's fascinating to me is I think the most appreciative audience might be, I'm asking you, the Greenlanders who haven't gone dog sledding either because that's what tourists do. Is that true?
Oh, with the dog sledding, no, it totally depends on where you are from in Greenland. If you're from above the Arctic Circle, you do know dog sledding. If you're below from the Arctic Circle, you don't know dog sledding because we don't have any dog sleds below this. So there's a big cultural difference. Like my husband is from Sisimiut, so he grew up with dog sleds. So sled dogs or whatever you call it, yeah, with sled dogs. So um, and I grew up in South Greenland where I had an Irish Terrier. I had a brown Irish Terrier dog as a pet, but like up in North Greenland, you do not go nearby the dogs and unless you are with the owner. And even though you're with the owner, you don't go and pet them because there's a big chance that they will bite you. And so it's like I don't know. It's not. It depends on where you're from. So if you are from North Greenland, the dog sledding is a completely normal thing. It's not a tourist thing. Of course, tourists go and try do it too, but it's part of their culture. So for me, as an extreme South Greenlander, going up there trying the dog sledding is very fascinating because it's a new thing for me. Yeah, but of course it's like I do sometimes generalize the Greenlandic people, and sometimes Greenlandic people also criticize me. It doesn't happen often, but sometimes they say, oh, you can't say this on behalf of all of us. But mostly what I'm saying I can do because I do a very general um I don't know, general opinions of Greenland when I say I'm careful, be careful of how not to say Greenland as like I'm careful what I'm saying regarding in respect for the different dialects and the different cultures we have in Greenland. But what I have got to know is that I do quickly try to adapt to the new places and ask the local people, how do you do it here? Do you do this? And how do you get among the ice? How do you, it's like I do a lot of researching before I say things in QsGreenland to make sure that I'm actually saying the correct and true things. And many of the information is like, I remember this from childhood, but is it correct? Do I remember this correctly? Then I do my research first before I say it. So in that way, I don't get many critics because I'm careful when I generalize
What's the biggest mistake you
Greenlanders.
made in that regard?
with in that regard, within the Greenlandic society, or with
No,
QsGreenland, or what do you
within
think?
Greenlandic society, that after you, I mean, you did a huge thing on Christmas, and you were telling us how Greenlanders do Christmas, and everybody knows everybody does Christmas different, but the things like the stars in the windows, and you're going around the Christmas tree, it's a tendency. I understand completely what you're trying to do, but I'm just wondering if afterwards you said, "Why did I say that? I should have said it differently, but it looks good," or
No, with the Christmas tree and the stars, that is all over Greenland. That is 100% sure. But we in our family, we dance around the Christmas tree in the evening. Many families dance around the Christmas tree in the morning or during the day. So that was the only difference, that we do it in the evening and some do it in the morning. So no, I didn't say anything bad there. I'm just trying to
and,
think.
and see, to
Oh, I
me,
can't think of any specific. Yeah.
your name says it all. This is your Greenland. They have their Greenland.
Yes, this
It's
is
the
my.
same Greenland, but it's always
Yes.
your view. So that makes sense to me. And
Yeah, exactly. So I'm showing Greenland from my point of view. So, and often I also reply other Greenlanders if they criticize me. So I just say reply to them saying, "This is my Greenland. I'm
right,
telling.
right,
Maybe your Greenland is different, but this is my QsGreenland, I'm telling." So in that way, I'm pretty much protected,
right, right.
since I can say it's from my point of view. Yeah.
So I should keep watch on the time. Okay, we've already done this a long time. I was thinking I might take and make a couple of different videos, but I can talk a long time, and I don't want to steal your last rays of sunshine and your family. Now you have 4 children, and how old?
Yes.
What are the ages?
The age is the oldest one is Lila. She's 10. Issy is turning 7 today, so it's actually her birthday.
Oh,
She'll be home very soon. And the Netolik, he is 5, and Uppik, he is 3. So from 3 to 10.
happy birthday, Aurora!
Thank you very much.
You've almost Aurora's birthday is coming right up. I don't know what day we are today. What are we? So she's
It's
5.
the 11th of January,
Right, right,
in 5 days.
right.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else that you want to say on this? I was. This is so exciting. This is working. I love these questions. I've got 50 more questions about Greenland and about you, and uh, I just didn't want to go too far too fast. I love your
Yeah,
storytelling sense.
but we should definitely do this again one day, because this is very interesting, and it's also very interesting for me to learn more about Alaska. And I would love to know more, and it's like making my interest in Alaska much bigger suddenly by our conversation. So I really do appreciate the questions you are asking and the stories you are telling, because it's like we are all connected somehow
Yes,
around the world,
that
and
that's
we are
that's.
basically just one.
I mean, you may not see it as often because there's so few Greenlanders, but I can travel down south, and as an Alaskan, everybody knows me, and they don't ask. Nobody asked where Alaska is on the map or what's Greenland. I thought that was funny. That to me, I've always known what Greenland was. But now you've had a conversation with a young woman in Siberia, Anna. I love that little clip
Yeah.
because you did the same thing
Mm-hmm.
that I'm doing here. You reached out to her to say we share so much.
Yeah.
Have you done that with other people as well?
Um, I'm a part of Nash community. Nash Daily, who's one of the biggest content creators, he has communities, and I'm part of this community, amazing community. So I do connect every Thursday with people from all around the world, and Anna is actually from the Nash community as well. So I do that connection once a week, every Thursday, and I'm definitely going to be creating more content in collaboration with other content creators from around the world. So yeah, I do. I really love these kind of connections and get to know each other and show the rest of the world that how similar we all are. We all want the same thing. We all want love and connection and understand each other. Yeah, and I'm just that's what I want to share
And
to the world.
the other thing I do is I take, everybody can see Alaska and say what a wonderful place it is, and you and I know that almost all Alaskans are like the rest of your Greenlanders. It's just another day in paradise. They don't appreciate it like we think they
Yeah,
should. And I have
yeah,
learned that when I travel down south, and I've seen the same spark in your eyes, it doesn't matter where you are, it's a beautiful place for you for a while. You and I don't choose to live there, maybe, but when I go to some place, I've started when I get in a traffic jam in the lower 48, I say, look, kids, this is different. And I have to go in rather than saying, oh, I'm stuck in traffic. I'm never stuck in traffic in Juneau. So I get to say, this is new and different. Look, kids, look at all the other people and see what you can find. And so to turn the negatives into positives, because we have lots of negatives in Alaska. You have negatives in all sorts of things don't work the way they should. We don't talk and pay attention to that. And all these other people have to come to Alaska or think about coming to Greenland or come to Greenland to think about being free of those worries. But we can be free down there, and it's that community, that connection. And then you did say it right. It's the people. It's connecting with people, and
yeah,
I have watched some of that community trying to understand you're going to Dubai, and it's it's too big for my head. I can only do a little bit at a time. I can't quite wrap my arms around Alaska, but I am fascinated by everything. Thank you very much, Q. Perhaps we can do this again, and perhaps I'll get through. I think I asked you about 3 of my questions, but it's fun to see your smiling face. And I am sorry. I kept saying it as I'd watch the videos. You keep saying your tag saying to say goodbye, other than life is awesome. But how do you say it in Greenlandic? See you.
I always say this: life is amazing. Akago tekos. So that
Tegos.
means see you tomorrow.
Perhaps not tomorrow, but thank you and happy birthday.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Yay.
Q.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.